Hey guys, kinggath here, and in this guide we're going to go over the basics of plots in Sim Settlements 2. Now before we get into any of these guides, I like to cover two things. One is all of this information and more is available in text form on the wiki at wiki.simsettlements2.com. So if you're looking for more information, or if you want to just quickly be able to search things up without having to scrub through videos, you can find it all there. The second thing to mention is that throughout these videos, you're going to learn about systems and mechanics that add to the depth of the settlement system. And if you find that any of them are not to your liking, you can highly customize Sim Settlements 2 in both the MCM menu and also our City Manager holotape. If you go down to the options and look for gameplay settings, you can find tons and tons broken into different categories so you can customize the experience exactly how you like it. So plots represent the basic building blocks of Sim Settlements. These are tiles you can place in workshop mode that will allow settlers to be assigned to them and then build up structures of the corresponding type. Now these plots are more than just structures, they actually impact the settings and gameplay of your current settlement. So they can impact things like the amount of food or power being produced, but they can also increase the requirements for defense or water, things of that nature. And you will learn more about that as you play with the individual plots. We won't go into great depth there, but just note that these are more than just aesthetic things. So when you first build up a plot, which you do in workshop mode, you will find that it will auto-assign to a settler if there's anyone available. So if we come in here and we go to our residential plots and place one down, you can see that I've already placed one. These plots do snap. They will snap to each other. They will also snap to many vanilla items such as foundation pieces. And shortly after you build it, you will start to see some icons appear. These are what we call our augmented reality icons. The headcanon for it is that this little ASAM sensor that you learn about throughout our story is kind of projecting those into the sky for you to make it easier, similar to how the workshop mode interface is designed to be as if you're seeing it on your Pip-Boy, so you can use your headcanon to immersify those, or if you really don't like them, as I mentioned, you can turn off most things in the mod, including those icons. Now, once a settler assigns, you'll see that the icon there turns green, and then the settler will begin to construct a building. Now, the first thing to note about Sim Settlements 2 is that construction of buildings on these plots requires resources. Now, while you're in a settlement, your settlers can actually use the scrap right from your workbench. So simply scrapping things in the settlement will drop more scrap in there, and that will let the settlers build with it. Now, when you're away from a settlement, the settlers will not use those resources unless they are in what's called virtual storage, and you'll learn about that in another video. But basically, the idea of virtual storage is to give the settlers some autonomy and give them access to some resources that you're not in control of. And that is what that panel on the right-hand side is, and anything that the settlers produce gets added to that automatically. So you'll find over time the settlers will generate their own resources, and they'll use those for additional construction so that you don't have to think about it much. Now, after you've got plots built, eventually they will evolve. They'll upgrade to higher levels. Now, these higher levels will provide an improvement in the structure, so you'll actually see a visual difference. The building will change and get more complicated, have more luxury items and things of that nature, and the plot will change in what it provides for the settlement. So the actual resources provided or the resources required will change over time as well. Now, before we continue, it is worth mentioning that if you were to pop into workshop mode on a save that you just installed Sim Settlements 2 on, you would find there are no plots in workshop mode, and that is because those are introduced to you and unlocked through our story content. So as you play through the story, you'll be gradually introduced to more and more mechanics, given access to more and more things to make it a simpler experience to learn. So you get some interesting story and unlock the mechanics over time, as opposed to just being thrown into the deep end. But if you prefer to dive in head first, you can actually force unlock all of our various mechanics and the plots themselves through our holotape. If you were to go into it and go to tools and cheats, you'll find a variety of options to unlock things there. Now, one thing to note with that is the cheat command can take a while before it actually kicks in. There's a lot of code that runs in the background that's normally hidden behind the slow, gradual unlocks of our story. But if you do it all at once, it can take a few minutes for everything to become unlocked. So if you were to run that holotape cheat and immediately pop into workshop mode, it could take a few minutes for everything to appear. Best thing to do if that's the case, simply exit workshop mode, wait a few minutes, and then pop in and check again, and repeat until you see the things you expect to appear there. Plots come in 7 flavors. The first is residential plots, which provide beds as well as a small amount of caps. Next, we have agricultural, which will provide food. Industrial, which will generate scrap for your settlers to use for building up plots, so whether it be the initial building or the upgrades. Martial will provide defense. Municipal has a wide variety of services, but the initial 2 you will have access to are water production and power production, and you will unlock additional as you go. Next up, we have commercial, which will give you access to shops and provide a large amount of caps for the settlement. And lastly, we have recreational, which will provide happiness for your settlement, and then over time you will unlock training, which allows you to train up your settlers' special stats. The reason you'd want to do that is because each plot type has a benefit associated with the different special stats. So if you have a large amount of endurance, you'll find that your agricultural plot that settlers assigned to will produce more food, and you'll learn about more of that as you go through the mod. We'll also discuss that in greater detail in another video. Now, once you've chosen the type of plot you want to build, you might find that there are multiple options available in that plot menu. So the first ones we're discussing are the foundation versus the normal. So on a normal plot, you will just see that it has the name of the plot type and then the size. So in this case, we have residential plot 2x2, and the 2x2 has to do with the floor tiles. So if you look at the floor tiles you can build in the base game, we consider these rather large tiles to be a single floor tile. So a 2x2 means simply taking 2 of these across and 2 of these deep and then attaching a plot to it. So that is a 2x2. So if you're looking for what those names mean, we're talking about that related to the foundations that you can build in the base game. So these will snap on cleanly. Now you'll note that there is a gap in the front here, and that is the space that we need for things like the power pole, and eventually the ASAM sensor will appear, as well as the area where the settler can animate cleanly to for doing construction. So this is a 2x2 if you consider from the back point all the way to the front area that we reserve for the plot to take care of these types of things. And some of the plots even have additional little things that will appear in that space. So the 2x2, that is what it's referred to, the floor tiles, you will need to snap to it cleanly. Now the foundation types are effectively the same thing, except rather than you needing to have a flat space or building vanilla tiles that you can build onto, you can actually just place this on the uneven terrain and it will bring its own foundation. So if we place this down, you'll see that shortly after it's built, a foundation will appear under it, and that foundation is customizable. We'll show you guys that in a little bit here, but the difference there is just in whether or not a foundation appears below it. Otherwise, they are functionally identical. They will have access to the same buildings, they'll provide the same resources, etc. The same holds true for the sizes. So you'll find in some of the sizes, depending on which add-on packs and which expansions you have installed, you will have a variety of sizes available. That's determined by which building plans are available. So for example, in the core of Sim Settlements and in our expansions, we only have 2x2 and interior options for residential, but if we go over to Martial, you can see we, in addition to those 2 types, we also have 1x1s and 3x3s available. So you may find different options available depending on the content you have installed. Now, these are only aesthetic with the size, so you might think automatically that a bigger plot is going to provide more of a benefit and a smaller is going to provide less, and that is not the case. Instead, all of the balance in Sim Settlements 2 is based on the number of settlers, and so it's natural that a larger plot will often have space for multiple settlers to be assigned. So if you find a plot you're building has multiple settler support, it will provide benefits multiplied by the number of settlers. So otherwise, the sizes are only for aesthetics, and it's to help you be able to build in different size settlements. Something like Hangman's Alley is going to have a hard time fitting in many 2x2s and virtually no 3x3s, but it could fit quite a lot of 1x1s and the interior type. Now you notice that interior is the one type that does not have the foundation available, because these are designed to be literally snapped inside of locations, hence the name interior. So you can build them inside of the existing structures in the game, or you can snap them to a couple of floor tiles in your own custom built structure. Now they are a little bit hard to place, particularly if you don't have the mod place everywhere. You're going to want to scrap everything out of your way and then carefully place them to get them green. It's going to be require a lot of careful movement. So these are generally going to be best done snapped to existing stuff, because placing them into existing structures without place everywhere is going to be a very, very big challenge, and that is a It's just part of the nature of a Fallout 4's placement system. So interiors intentionally do not have a foundation available. So again, all of these different sizes, they have functionally the same impact. So none of these is going to be better or worse than the other. It's literally giving you options so that you can build in the space that you have available in that particular settlement. Alright, so that covers the basics of plots. If you're looking for more information, check out below in the playlist to see additional videos on plots and other mechanics in some settlements too. And again, reminder, you can learn a lot of this stuff in the game or on our wiki, so you don't necessarily have to follow all of these tutorials to play some settlements too. This is simply a resource to help those of you who like to dive in deep and know as much as possible before you start, or if you're looking for some tips and tricks for things maybe you missed from playing in the game. Alright guys, take care and enjoy the mods.